All right, so I've put in the first couple of color block shapes, and let me just talk about my thinking at this point. So I've put in the shadow side of the cup and the cast shadow on the background. And the reason I put those in is, generally speaking, as I think I've mentioned before, it's good with these kinds of studies where you're dealing with light and shade. You've got the white of the paper, so it's good to start with a dark or a shadow side first. If I put the light on the light side and didn't have a shadow, the light would actually look dark against the white that would be in the shadow, right? So it makes sense to go to the shadow side first. So I went to this cup, the cup shadow side first, and I looked at that color, and I looked at the colors that I had on my palette and sort of went through what we talked about last time, just sort of judging, okay, what hue is it? It's basically in the red range, right? It's less chromatic than what I have. It's lighter than what I have. And in terms of temperature, it's a little bit well warmer than the cool red. It's got some yellow in it, but it also has some blue, which cuts the chromatic intensity. So anyway, I did my best, just my best average for that particular color. And then what I did is I went to this color next, the shadow behind it, because you want to start building relationships, and the only way to do that is to put one color against another. So I wouldn't want to go from here and then out here somewhere. You know, I want those colors to meet, again, as I think I've mentioned before. So I went to this side over here, and I also don't want to complete the cup, right? I don't want to do the light and the shadow of the cup and then the light and shadow of the background, because then you're sort of building objects and not just concentrating exclusively on these relationships and how they're working. So you want to stay as non-object oriented as possible. All right, and then when I looked at the green behind the cup, I just asked myself, okay, in terms of hue, value, chroma, and temperature, how does that differ from the shadow on the cup, right? So in terms of hue, obviously we're going towards a green instead of a red. So I'm starting off with blue and yellow first. It's also slightly more chromatic than the cup. It's also slightly lighter in terms of value. And it's also cooler than the cup, which is in the red range, and the green is going to be cooler, right? So then what I did is I mixed up a color and put it down next to this that I thought took care of all of those. So this color is a little bit lighter than this color. It's a little bit more chromatic. It's cooler, and it's in the green range. So you don't want to like over adjust at this point. As long as you're hitting those four properties correctly, you're probably still going to be off some, but you need to build the rest of the relationships to really tell how far you're off. It's hard to judge when you've got all this white in the paper. So you don't want to kind of micromanage your color shapes at this point. You just want to do your best of like taking four of those, those four properties of color. So like if I put this green down and the green looked okay, but it was darker than the red, then I would want to change that, because that's important. That's being off in an important way. Like this has to be lighter in value than that. So I'd want to change it. But otherwise, if I just feel like, oh, maybe it's not quite the right color, as long as it's relating to that first color in those four principal ways in terms of the properties of colors, you just go on to the next color shape. So what I'm going to do is start building away from these with the colors that are touching those, and I'm not sure what that line is there for. And I'll come back when I've completed the poster study.